Boom, we are live. We are live 3 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right on the dot. And today, fight fans, we're going to be breaking down the Ultimate Fighter 25, Ultimate Fighter Redemption finale, whatever you want to call it. The card this Friday night, actually tomorrow night, the night before UFC 213. And it's funny, guys, this card actually happens to be on my birthday. That is right. I get to enjoy a UFC card on my birthday for 2 straight years now. So very excited for this. Hopefully luck is on my side here with the bets. I do indeed have 6 bets for this card, just like UFC 213. First things first, I did do my UFC 213 roundtable breakdown with Will Martin and Justin of UFC Bro Picks. That's on my channel. You can check that out. I had a lot of fun talking to those guys. Super pumped for those fights, man. But yeah, like I said, 6 bets for this card. Also, speaking of my birthday, man, you guys probably might know by now, but I do have a little goal going on my channel. We are so close, man. I'm trying to get 500 subscribers by the end of my birthday tomorrow night. That would be the ultimate birthday present to me. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed yet, just hit that subscribe button, man. It takes 2 seconds. And if you don't have a YouTube channel, it's really easy to make. You can just go and make one real quick, less than 5 minutes. Subscribe to me. That would mean the absolute world. And got about, I'd say, 33 hours to go, and I'm about 15 subscribers short, something like that. So that would be awesome if you guys could do that for me. But man, let's just get right into this 12-fight Ultimate Fighter finale card. And like I said, I do have 6 bets up. So like it from a betting perspective, and even from a fan perspective, man, we got some fun shit on this card. We are spoiled with some great fights this weekend, great prospects. Justin Gaethje making his UFC debut in a main event and getting thrown to the wolves with Michael Johnson. So I love this card from top to bottom. I think the actual finale finals matchup to crown the champion is a very interesting and fun stylistic matchup. But you know how we do things over here. We're going to be breaking down this entire 12-fight card. So starting out with the very first fight of the night, we do have Tecia Tiny Tornado Torres minus 370 now, taking on Juliana Lima plus 310. So I'm going to try to go over this one a little bit quickly because I think it's quite simple, man. I think Tecia is really better everywhere here. I do think she's the better, sharper striker than Juliana Lima. She's the more athletic, faster woman. So on the feet, I tend to think that Lima really is going to have nothing for her. I think Lima's going to try to bully up her against the cage. I think she's going to look for takedowns. But man, Tecia Torres she's got some damn decent grappling of her own. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that she is indeed probably the better wrestler and grappler than Juliana Lima as well. So I really think the line is warranted here. I think Tecia Torres minus 370 is just about right. I think she's better than Juliana Lima everywhere. It's going to be tough to see how Lima possibly pulls this out. I do indeed have I got Tecia Torres in a 2-unit parlay, man. I managed to get her at minus 270, so I beat the line movement here by about 100 cents, which is awesome. But yeah, I really like Tecia here. I'm going to say she gets it done by decision. I'm pretty sure she's got all her wins by decision. She's kind of a little decisionator. And if you really want to go even a step further than me, the line on Tecia Torres wins by decision is minus 190, so I would not fault you at all at playing that. I think the over is also very solid here. Minus 400, it's a little steep, but you know what, man? I think there might even be some value on that at minus 400. But yeah, 2 units on Tecia Torres here in a 2-leg parlay with a prop later in the card. But moving on here, guys, this is indeed my biggest play of the entire weekend. We got Teruto Ishihara minus 310 taking on Gray, the bully Maynard plus 255. Gray Maynard, what can I say about this guy, man? Absolute legend. Came so close to winning that UFC lightweight championship all those years ago. I mean, guy had wars with Frankie Edgar, and really back in his prime, back when he was having those fights with Frankie Edgar, back when he was defeating great fighters on his way to those title shots, Gray Maynard was a top 3 lightweight in the world, man. And it's really The dude started his career 10-0. And you look at some of these wins he has on that 10-0 streak there. Some of the best lightweights of that era: Kenny Florian, Nate Diaz, Jim Miller, Frankie Edgar. Say what you want about him, but Dennis Seaver. Very, very, very impressive run from Gray Maynard there. Dude started off his career 10-0. He is now 12-6. This is honestly, man, one of the biggest career fall offs I've ever seen in my entire life. I honestly think those fights with Frankie Edgar changed the guy's life. He's only won 2 fights since then. A 25-minute split decision against Clay Guida, and then his most recent win against Fernando Bruno, who is quite the jobber, and this fight against Ryan Hall. I think that really, really showed the level of like how much this guy is shot and should not be fighting, because he went out there and he got outstruck by a grappler. He got outstruck by a guy who's been training striking for just a couple years. So, man, I think Gray Maynard's done, man. And not only that, man, I mean, obviously I'm going to be looking to fade Gray Maynard and really any fight that he's in the UFC. Just give me a sec, guys. But man, he's facing a real stud here in Teruto Ishihara. He did lose his last one out to Artem Lobov, but I think Artem Lobov showed in his fight against Cub Swanson that Lobov is no joke. The guy is a fighter. He's a very tough dude, tough out for anybody. And Ishihara is still just a kid, 25 years old, very young in the fight game. But the thing is here, Gray Maynard typically has not done well with strikers whatsoever in the last few years. I'm pretty sure the last 3 strikers he's fought have knocked him out in under 7.5 minutes, I want to say, something like that. Yeah, Ross Pearson knocked him out in the second round. Nate Diaz knocked him out in the first round. TJ Grant in the first round. So, man, Ishihara, he's going to come in here looking to prove a point. And I think he does exactly that. I think Ishihara has no problem dusting up the old man here and under probably inside the first round. I think he gets it done in the first round. He's gonna light the guy up. So I really, 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 really like Teruto Ishihara here. I did manage to put 5 units on him. Yes, a max bet at minus 230 to win 2.15 units. I do believe that is very easy money. And even looking at the odds now, man, Teruto Ishihara at minus 310. I would say that's still very parlayable if you want to go ahead and do that. Ishihara wins inside the distance at minus 134. I wouldn't hate you if you played that, but personally, me, I'd just stay away. I wouldn't be surprised if we just saw a 3-round beatdown as well. You really never know what's going to happen here. But man, yeah, so love Ishihara here. 5 units straight at minus 130. So I think he gets it done in the first round via strikes. So moving on here, man, we do have women's bantamweight bout. We got Jessica Eye plus 100 taking on Aspen Ladd minus 120. Man, I've been watching Aspen Ladd for a very, very long time now. She's impressed me quite a bit in Invicta. Because as you guys know, the main thing I look for in a fighter is improvements, and this girl has shown vast improvements. She's a very strong grappler. She puts forth a lot of pressure. She just gets in girls' faces, takes them down. She's got very brutal ground and pound. She's ruthless on top. And man, I think, if anything, I think Aspen Ladd should probably be a little bit bigger of a favorite than she actually is. I was surprised that she was the favorite just because Jessica Eye's got the bigger name and yada, yada, yada. But man, I still think Aspen Ladd should be probably somewhere around the minus 160, minus 170 range, because Jessica Eye is the kind of girl that she has a hard time facing adversity. I hate to say it, but I don't think she's the most mentally strong fighter in the world. If something in the fight doesn't go her way, it's going to be tough, man. And the thing is, I don't really see an angle on betting Jessica Eye here at plus money, because she's not going to knock Aspen Ladd out. She's going to have to outstrike Aspen Ladd here over the course of 3 rounds. And honestly, man, I think all Aspen Ladd needs to do here to win is to take down Jessica Eye, beat her up on the ground, and I don't think she'll ever recover from here on out. So if you want to take Aspen Ladd at minus 120, I fully give you the MMAKelton approval there. I'm just personally passing. I saw better opportunities on this card, but I'm going to go ahead and say Aspen Ladd wins this one via a 29-28 decision. I think Aspen will probably have those UFC jitters, give up a tough first round where I probably outstrikes her. Then Ladd gets her feet under her, takes her down in the second round, and Jessica I just simply doesn't recover. So me personally, I got Aspen Ladd via 29-28 decision, but when it comes to betting, this fight for sure is going to be a pass for me. If Aspen Ladd becomes plus money, I don't know, man. That might have to be a bet for me there. But as of right now, this fight is a pass. So moving on here, we do have Ed Herman, who's coming in plus 160. Dollaway minus 185. Man, I don't think CB Dollaway should be minus 185 against anybody in the UFC, not even an old timer like Ed Herman. I think this is a very dangerous fight for both. I for sure think this fight should be around pick'em. So I'm personally passing on this fight, but if you're going to bet on it, I'd definitely recommend taking the dog here and Ed Herman at plus 160. I think. So I think CB is probably the better wrestler, the more athletic guy, the guy with more power in his hands. But I think Ed Herman he's got more fighter qualities. He's the kind of guy that'll fight things off more and try harder and have more heart and not give up and all the things you look for in a fighter. CB Dollaway is more of the athlete here. Ed Herman is more of the fighter here. So I think it's unlikely, but possible just because it is Ed Herman. I think if CB Dollaway wins this fight, he'll probably land a gigantic bomb, knock Ed Herman out. Ed Herman's been knocked out a few times recently, or he'll go out there and out wrestle Ed Herman because, like I said, he's the better wrestler. But I'm going with the dog here, guys. I am picking Ed Herman to win this fight, and this is actually just a very recent switch up for me. Like I said, I think he's more of the fighter, and I think more likely than not, Ed Herman is going to be able to find a way to grit out this win and just be more of a fighter than CB Dollaway. And I think Ed Herman could knock out CB Dollaway. So my official pick is going to be a second-round TKO for Ed Herman, and it pains me to say it, but I really just I don't feel like trusting Ed Herman. So at plus 160, it's a pass for me. But if it gets up there, man, if it gets up to plus 200, plus 210, I might take that shot. But yeah, Ed Herman, the underdog, is the pick for me. So moving on here, most recently added just yesterday, we got James Krause minus 355 taking on Tom Galicchio, Toothless Tom, plus 265. So I got some strong feelings here, man. James Krause actually was the only guy on that season of The Ultimate Fighter to be an active UFC fighter. I picked him to either win the whole. I thought it was going to either be James Krause or Ramsey Nijem that won the whole thing. Krause eliminated Nijem. I was pretty surprised Jesse Taylor beat James Krause there, but I think that was just a situation of James Krause and Ramsey Nijem had a fucking war, and that Taylor fight against Krause could not have been too much long after that. So James Krause didn't have a whole lot of time to recover after that Nijem war. So I think it was just more of that. Jesse Taylor was fighting a very beaten up James Krause. I think if Krause and Taylor were to fight with some time to prepare for it, I think that's Krause all day long, man. But I think this is an even better matchup for him here, man, against Tom Galicchio. Tom Galicchio's got some damn good grappling. I will give him that, but that's about it, man. I think the guy's got a lot to be desired when it comes to the striking, the wrestling. I think the guy's just a one-trick pony. He can grapple, and that's about it. But you know who else can grapple? James fucking Krause, man. So I just think this is an all-around really good matchup for James Krause here. I think what we're most likely going to see here is James Krause with a big striking advantage. And James Krause is no amazing striker by any means, but that just shows how lowly I think of Tom Galicchio striking. I think James Krause can absolutely outstrike him over the course of 3 rounds here. Tom is going to be looking for those takedowns. James Krause will be able to stuff them with ease. I think both these guys are, they're 155 pounders fighting at 170 here, so I don't think it'll make too much of a difference. But I do believe Krause is a little bit bigger of a guy than Galicchio, but I like Krause wherever this fight goes, man. Even if Tom gets it down to the ground, I can 100% see James reversing position. That all being said, I do have James Krause in a 1.5 unit parlay with somebody later in the card. He's minus 355 right now. I got him in minus 350, so it really hasn't changed a whole lot. But yeah, I favor Krause here heavily, and I'll say Tom's tough enough to stick it out here over the course of 3 rounds. So I got James Krause via a 30-27 decision. Up next, man, we got Angela Overkill Hill minus 340 taking on Ashley Yoder plus 280. So I'm passing on this fight, but it's funny because I've actually bet on both of these girls in the past before. Ashley Yoder, I bet on her in her last fight against Kish. Very, very close fight. I thought Yoder won it, but unfortunately not. I still felt like I got my money's worth with that plus 200, plus 220, whatever I got. And then Angela Hill, I bet her in all of her Invicta fights, and she did come through for me every time. So that was nice there. But obviously here at minus 340, I'm not going to be able to bet Angela Hill here. And I don't quite feel comfortable taking the shot on Yoder here, although I do feel like the line is off. I don't think Angela Hill should be minus 340 here. I think she should be somewhere around the minus 220, 250 range. But honestly, I think it's pretty clear this is a striker versus grappler matchup. Angela Hill is the far superior striker, whereas Ashley Yoder has got the way better grappling here. And I think this is just a case of Ashley Yoder's obviously going to be looking for those takedowns. I think Angela Hill has improved her takedown defense and her get-up game, so I see this being a striking match, and I think the better striker will outstrike her opponent here over the course of 3 rounds. It's as simple as that. I see Angela Hill here winning a 30-27 decision via striking over the course of 3 rounds. So is what it is, man. Not too much of an in-depth breakdown here, but I feel like it's a pretty simple one. So I got Angela Hill via a 30-27 decision here. It's going to be a pass for me. But moving on to the 6-fight main card, man, we got Marcel Fortuna plus 200 taking on Jordan Big Swinging Johnson minus 240, one of my favorite nicknames in MMA. Man, so I don't know what it is, man. I was 100% convinced that before these odds came out, I would have Jordan Johnson somewhere in my bets, whether it's in a small parlay, I'm playing him straight, somewhere I'm going to have this guy, but I don't know. I guess I passed. I'm not sure what it is, man, because I really feel like he's going to go out there and steamroll Marcel Fortuna. And the thing is, I feel like Jordan Johnson's probably better everywhere. I feel like he can probably outstrike Marcel Fortuna. I'm probably going to have to go and do a little bit more research. Marcel Fortuna, he was taken down and grinded out by Corey Hendricks on The Ultimate Fighter. I believe that's how the fight went. Corey Hendricks, who's not a very good fighter at all, was able to grind his decision out over Fortuna in the TUF House. And Jordan Johnson he's a very good fighter, man. I feel like he could absolutely do the same. I feel like he can win this fight on the feet or the ground. I'm really kind of convincing myself because the line's really not that bad right now. I probably might have to go make a bet on Jordan Johnson as soon as I'm done recording this video, because I do have somebody I'm eyeing down to possibly put in a parlay with him. You guys might get the first look at a parlay I'm looking at. I'll talk about that in a sec when I get to that fight. But yeah, I like Jordan Johnson. I think he can outstrike Fortuna here. Fortuna obviously is a grappler. He's going to want to get the fight down to the ground. I know a lot of you saw him knock out a heavyweight and his guy a striker. Anthony Hamilton is a guy with just a bad shin and bad striking defense. Most light heavyweights would be able to knock out Anthony Hamilton, so I don't put a lot of stock into that knockout for Fortuna. But the guy's tricky. The guy can grapple. So if Jordan Johnson wants to go ahead and take him down and try to grind him out, he does have to be careful. Fortuna can throw some stuff off his back, but I think this is Jordan Johnson domination all day long. I got Jordan Johnson via a 30-27 decision. So moving on here, man, we do got Elias Theodora minus 120 taking on Brad DeVries plus 100. So man, you guys, if you guys listened to the 213 roundtable breakdown last night, me and Will and Justin talked about this fight very, very briefly. Me and Justin are in fact going head to head on this fight. He does have a bet on Elias, and I do indeed have a 2-unit underdog shot on Brad DeVries. I did get him at plus 150. I think I don't want to call Elias Theodora a fraud by any means, but I just don't think he's not a very skilled fighter. Like, he doesn't have the technique. He's just very, very good at making the fight his own. Like, he knows how to make it his fight. And he did it very well against Cesar Mutanch in his last fight. I give him all the credit in the world. There were tons of people betting Cesar Mutanch there. Shout out to Justin. He was one of the only few people to have Elias Theodoro in that fight, and he had quite a bit on Elias as well. But I think Brad DeVries is... I'll go on a limb and say Brad DeVries is probably the best fighter Elias Theodora has ran into this far. You can make the argument Thiago Santos possibly. I probably rank Thiago and Brad somewhere right next to each other, but Thiago was able to go out there and beat Brad. He was able to use his very technical striking and do a good job of not letting Elias make it his weird, awkward fight. And I think Brad DeVries can do the same, man. I think the striking differential is huge here. I think Elias Theodora all he really has on the feet are those awkward kicks. And if Elias Theodora wants to go and try to press Brad DeVries up against the cage like he's done to guys in the past, I think Brad DeVries is very good in the clinch. He'll be able to reverse the clinch. I think he could utilize the dirty boxing. I think he can pick Elias Theodora apart and probably go on to win a 30-27 decision. Elias, I'll give him all the credit in the world. He's got good cardio, and he's got a good chin, so I do see him lasting in this fight for sure. But I think this is a case of Brad DeVries is a good enough guy to not let Elias make it his kind of weird, awkward fight. So I have 2 units on Brad DeVries here. I got a beautiful line, plus 150. Shout out to Dan Levy of Best Fight Picks. He got that line as well. Not only that, guys, I do have the over 2.5 rounds here. I was very, very comfortable with that over. It's the only prop that no, it's not the only prop. It's the only total that I bet all weekend long between these two cards. I got the over 2.5 rounds here, basically because if Elias wins this fight, we all know Elias doesn't finish fights against good fighters. And if Brad DeVries wins this fight, like I said, Elias is a tough fuck. He's a tough fucker, and he'll probably be able to survive. He's got good cardio. He can take a shot. I mean, hell, he went 3 rounds with Thiago Santos. So I think no matter who wins here, I think we're seeing a 3-round fight. So I do have 2 units on that over 2.5 rounds, and that is indeed with Tecia Torres. So I have 2 units on Tecia Torres in the over in this fight at minus 116 to win 1.72 units. So 2 plays here in this fight for me, guys. I got the over, and I got Brad DeVries as an underdog. So, yeah, I got Brad via a 30-27 decision. And moving on here, man, we got Jared, the Killer Gorilla, Cannonier, minus 260, taking on Nick Rourke, plus 200. Nick Rourke coming in here, very, very short replacement, just a few days' notice, and he's got something going for him here, man. He does have wrestling. He's an undefeated guy. I don't exactly remember what his wrestling credentials are, but I know they are they're pretty impressive. And one thing you can say about Jared Cannonier that's he definitely needs to work on is probably that takedown defense and his grappling. But you got to think, man, he went in there in his last fight and he was taken down and grinded out by a very, very experienced elite mixed martial artist in Glover Teixeira last time. So is Nick Rourke a guy who has never fought in the UFC, a guy who's coming in here on short notice? Is he going to be able to go out there and out-wrestle Jared Cannonier here over the course of 3 rounds? I don't think so. I think Jared Cannonier, maybe he won't stuff the takedowns at first, but I think Jared Cannonier can do enough to survive on the ground. I mean, he survived against Glover Teixeira on the ground. I think he can do enough to survive on the ground, and I think he'll have the better cardio, and I think he'll be able to go out there and knock Nick Rourke out probably in the second round, if not the first. I wouldn't be surprised if Jared Cannonier, his takedown defense held up right away, and I think Nick Rourke has absolutely zero for him on the feet. So I see Jared Cannonier going out there and starching the short notice newcomer here, probably in the first or second round. I was thinking about waiting for that Cannonier wins in the distance line. But man, I just got this mindset where I really just don't want to play a whole lot of props right now. So, like I was mentioning earlier with the Jordan Johnson, this is a parlay I'm possibly looking at to play. So Jordan Johnson and Jared Cannonier parlayed together right now, almost plus money, minus 104. I might just put a unit on that at minus 104 just so I can have something, because I really want to have something on both these guys because I'm so solid on them, and I just want to have something because I feel like they should probably be bigger favorites than they are. So I really feel like I got to play those lines. We'll see. We'll see, man. But that is a parlay I'm looking at. But as of right now, those are two passes for me. But I like Jared Cannonier here. I think he gets it done via knockout. I think if he can't stuff the takedowns, he'll be able to weather the storm and knock and Rourke out in the second round. So moving on here, man, very, very interesting fight. I love this fight a lot, man. We got Mark Diakiese minus 260 taking on Drakkar Klose plus 220. I know Drakkar Klose has been kind of a popular underdog pick here this weekend. I've seen a lot of sharp, smart people on Drakkar Klose, but I disagree, man. I think Mark Diakiese is a very, very special athlete, and I see him going out there and being able to style on Drakkar Klose. Maybe not finish him, but definitely avoid the grindy MMA lab style, keep distance, land those kicks, land those jabs. I think Mark Diakiese can go out there and outstrike Klose here, or score another phenomenal knockout. And I think if we see another phenomenal knockout here from Mark Diakiese against a very tough guy in Drakkar Klose, the sky's the absolute limit for this dude. Mark Diakiese is a guy that I actually bet on in his first 3 UFC fights, and I've cashed on him every single time thus far. And I want to keep riding that train, man. So I do indeed have 1.5 units on Mark Diakiese that is parlayed with James Krause. So I got that 1.5 units at minus 130 to win 1.16. Basically, man, I think Mark Diakiese is going to have a nice speed advantage here, a nice athleticism difference. He's going to be able to keep distance, not try to get grinded out. You know, Drakkar Klose is going to be looking to push Diakiese up against the cage and take him down. I think Diakiese, he moves so well, and he knows exactly what Klose is going to be doing. I think he can absolutely implement the game plan here better than Klose can, and I think he's the more talented guy. I mean, Drakkar Klose, he has not fought a good fighter ever. If you really want to go back and look at his record and be brutally honest here, he's never fought a good fighter. Went out there and beat the worst lightweight on the roster in his last fight. Didn't even finish the worst lightweight on the roster. Can you imagine what Mark Diakiese would do to old Devin Powell? So I love Diakiese here. I think he's the much more talented fighter, the fighter that I think is going to be able to implement his game plan more efficiently here. So 1.5 units on him in a parlay, and I'll give Drakkar Klose the benefit of the doubt. I say Diakiese gets this done via a 30-27 decision. So moving on here to the co-main event, the TUF 25 TUF Redemption finale fight. We got Jesse JT Money Taylor minus 205 taking on Diego Lima plus 165. So, man, like I said, I'm quite shocked, honestly, that Jesse Taylor was able to make it to this finale. But then again, I think I think he had a lot of favorable matchups for him in that house. And the most recent one against James Krause, I already explained my thoughts on that. I think that was just against a very beaten up James Krause, and his body didn't have enough energy in it to fight off those takedowns against the bigger guy in Jesse Taylor. You also got to think Jesse Taylor is an actual 170 pounder. James Krause is a 155 pounder, but man, Jesse Taylor is fighting an actual 170 pounder here against Diego Lima, who's a guy I've thought for sure was probably going to make the finals. Coming into the season, my top 3 guys were Diego Lima, James Krause, and Ramsey Nijem. I was right about one of those. Diego Lima made it to the finals, and he is a plus 165 underdog here against Jesse Taylor. So I indeed took the shot on Diego Lima. I got 1.5 units on Diego Lima here. I got that at plus 160 to win 2.4 units. So basically, man, I have some really strong thoughts on this, and I really feel like putting more on Diego Lima, but I think I might just leave it at that just because, man, my bankroll is a little scared for this weekend between these 2 cards, so I kind of want to just settle down just a little bit here. But 1.5 units on Lima I'm happy with, especially at such a good number. So basically, I don't know why Jesse Taylor is a 2-1 favorite here. So the guy's one-dimensional. He's basically just a wrestler. He doesn't really have that good of striking. His grappling's okay. I mean, he was able to choke out James Krause. That shows something. But man, looking at Jesse Taylor's record, he's 30-15, which is good. He's won 2/3 of his fights, but out of those 15 losses, 14 come by way of submission. The guy is notorious for using his wrestling, getting guys to the ground, and getting caught up in a submission by guys that are way less talented than him. Diego Lima is a guy who has very good BJJ, a guy who can absolutely do what 14 other guys have been able to do to Jesse Taylor. So, man, if this fight, and that's only if this fight goes to the ground, that's only if Jesse Taylor is able to get those takedowns. Diego Lima has improved every aspect of his game. His brother, Douglas Lima, is a top 5 welterweight in the world, and he trains with him every single day. So the guy is bound to improve. He's improved on that takedown defense. He's improved his striking, and he's improved his grappling. So I think he has a great chance to go out there and stuff the takedowns of Jesse Taylor. And if this is a striking match, it's Diego Lima all day long. Now let's say Jesse Taylor is able to utilize those takedowns and get Diego Lima down to the ground. We know Jesse Taylor has dove into submissions 14 times in his career, and those are against fighters who aren't quite as good as grapplers as Diego Lima. So if Jesse Taylor can get to this fight to the ground and Diego Lima's on his back, I ain't scared, man. I ain't scared. I think Diego Lima could pull something off. I think he can reverse a position. I think he's going to be I just watched the weigh-ins. He looked like the better conditioned fighter. He looked in better shape. I think he's going to have the better cardio here. I think even if it's late, I think for sure he can pull something off on the ground and submit Jesse Taylor, and that's even if Jesse Taylor can get those takedowns. So I love Diego Lima here. I'm content wherever the fight goes, man. So 1.5 units plus 160. Of course, I'm worried about the grind. I won't lie. Of course, I'm worried. Jesse Taylor, he's a guy who's made improvements too. Guy who seems to have better shoulders on his head. I mean, head on his shoulders. My bad, but man. I think this is Lima all day. I think this is a great fight for him. I mean, I believe he's much more in his athletic prime. I believe he's 27 years old. I'm pretty sure Jesse Taylor is a little long in the tooth at this point, probably 34, 35 years old. He's 34 years old. So I just love Lima here, man. I really, really like it. I haven't had a whole lot of time to think about it because this fight was just really made official yesterday. I didn't know if it was going to be Lima Taylor versus Lima Krause. So I didn't really have a lot of time to think about it, but I'm solid, man. I thought I was going to wake up in the morning and this was going to be around pick'em. So I love the price, and Diego Lima is going to be your TUF 25 champion. So moving on to the main event here, man. The bets don't stop and the picks don't stop. We got Michael the Menace Johnson minus 165 taking on Justin Gaethje plus 145. So I got some strong thoughts here, man. I do indeed like Michael the Menace Johnson. Just going to come out right and say it. 3 units at minus 110 to win 2.73. So Justin Gaethje, man, the guy's 17-0. The guy was a multiple defending champion and World Series of Fighting. He's got great wrestling accolades. He's fighting a guy that's 17-11. So you'd really think, looking at paper, Justin Gaethje probably's got this one, right? I could not disagree more. So looking at Justin Gaethje's record and who he's actually beaten and how he's beaten them, really not that impressive, man. So you look through here, man. So he won the title. He knocked out Richard Patishnock in the first round. Props to him. He was a minus 920 there. So what do you expect? Then in his first title defense, he fights a one-armed man in Nick Newell. Takes him till the second round to knock out Nick Newell. He was a minus 410 there. Next fight comes in, defends his title against Melvin Gillard. Goes to a split decision with post-UFC Melvin Gillard. Very shot fighter. Split decision. Next two fights, absolute wars with Luis Palomino. Now, I like Luis Palomino. He's a very entertaining fighter to watch. But if you're that good, you should not be having wars with Luis Palomino. Next up, in my opinion, definitely his most impressive performance, Brian Foster. He was able to TKO him with leg kicks. Props to him there, but Brian Foster is also a guy that just got submitted by a 40-year-old John Fitch, so it's still Brian Foster. And then his most recent fight against Luis Firmino. He's minus 500 here, and rightfully so. Luis Firmino is a guy who is a bit past his prime, a guy who just got submitted by Brian Foster. Luis Firmino was putting it on Justin Gaethje and whooping his ass, and one can argue that Justin Gaethje kind of got gifted a win there with the doctor's stoppage. So I'm not entirely impressed with Justin Gaethje. I think he's getting thrown to the wolves here in Michael Johnson because Michael Johnson is no slouch, man. Like I mentioned, his record, it may be 17-11, and he has dropped the ball with some bad fighters in the past, but I would argue he hasn't done that in a long time. The last time he's lost to a questionable fighter was Reza Madadi over 4 years ago. Since then, beat Joe Lozon, beat Gleison Tebow, beat Melvin Gillard, beat Edson Barboza, had a split decision loss against Beneil Dariush. That was probably the worst decision of that year. He for sure won that fight. But even then, we're still talking about Beneil Dariush. Next up, fight I was at, the Nate Diaz fight. Kind of gassed out there. Nate Diaz got in his head a little bit. And still, it's Nate freaking Diaz. Next fight comes off a little bit of a layoff. Fights an absolute savage in Dustin Poirier, comes out, overcomes the last two losses in his career, knocks out Dustin Poirier in the first round in the best performance of his career, and then in his most recent fight, takes on who is, in my opinion, the number one lightweight in the world, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Makes it to the third round with Khabib, but Khabib was the better man that night. So he's not losing to any slouches lately, man. Michael Johnson is still a very talented fighter. You got to be a talented guy to go out there and beat guys like Edson Barboza and Dustin Poirier. Also, the only guy to give Tony Ferguson a loss in the UFC. I think Justin Gaethje is really in trouble here. They should have gave him a fighter who probably isn't even in the top 15 yet. We've seen time after time these WSOF guys come over to the UFC and they don't particularly look too impressive. We just saw David Branch go to split decision with Krzysztof Jotko in a very uninspiring performance. Granted, he got the win, but didn't look good in any means. And then Marlon Moraes just came in against Rafa Sunsao, who's a fighter definitely on the decline, and he dropped a decision to him. And I think Justin Gaethje's got a tougher fight than Marlon and Dave Branch were given. I think Michael Johnson, when Michael Johnson shows up, the Michael Johnson that showed up against Dustin Poirier, that might be the best lightweight in the world. So talking about both guys' careers there, and I know I'm kind of rambling, the actual stylistic matchup itself, Justin Gaethje is a very wild guy who's he's not got that good of technical striking defense, and Michael Johnson is a guy who can absolutely exploit that. I would argue he's probably the fastest fighter in the division, and he's got big pop behind those punches. So I feel like Justin Gaethje is going to get a little bit sloppy in there and get knocked out very quick by Michael Johnson. If it goes into the later rounds, that's a little concerning to me, of course, but I think Michael Johnson can still manage to uphold a decision if it does. And Another thing, two other things that people are worried about for Michael Johnson's case: the leg kicks. Justin Gaethje has very impressive leg kicks. He stopped a couple guys with those. Michael Johnson is fine with leg kicks, man. He trains in the combat club. He's got tons of leg kicks thrown at him all the time. This is not his first time fighting a guy with amazing leg kicks. He was able to neutralize the kicking game of Edson Barboza very, very well, and Edson Barboza's a better kicker than Justin Gaethje. And then the wrestling of Justin Gaethje, which Justin Gaethje never really uses in his fights anyway. But, man, you look at the guys Michael Johnson trains with over at the Combat Club. He's over there stuffing takedowns from Kamaru Usman every single day. He's training with good wrestlers. He's ready for this fight, and Michael Menace Johnson is going to knock out Justin Gaethje in the first round. I got 3 units, minus 110. So I know I rambled there, guys, but I had some strong feelings. So love Michael Johnson. Love Diego Lima. Love all my bets on this card. I'm still debating whether or not I want to put a 1 unit on a parlay of Cannonier and Jordan Johnson, but we'll see. That's going to do it for me, guys. I appreciate you tuning in very much. I had about 30 viewers peak at one point, so love you guys. Appreciate you watching very much. Let's get that 500 subscribers by tomorrow night for my birthday. Follow me on Twitter at MMAKelton. My bets at MMA Tips and Caprotech MMAKelton. Comment below. Tell me who you're betting on. I appreciate all you live chat participants. I'm glad you guys were in there lighting up that chat. Shout out to Giovanni, Nicholas, Thousand Illusions, Sandro, all you guys, Brandon. Man, that's going to do it. We got a hell of a weekend ahead of us, guys. We got 2 awesome fight cards, and I will be back next week for I think I'm going to do my Hardcore's Delight video. I think there's a Bellator next week, and we got that Scotland UFC card. But and speaking of Scotland, like I said, did the 213 roundtable breakdown with Will Martin and Justin of UFC Bro Picks last night. So you can go and check that out. That's on my channel. That was a lot of fun. So that's going to do it for me, guys. I appreciate you all tuning in very much. I'm done rambling. My throat hurts. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to take a nap. Get ready for this birthday celebration tomorrow. So above all, guys, enjoy the fights.